Good evening, friends. Counselors? Okay. I am hereby calling to order this November 23rd, 2021 meeting of the Council of the City of Lancaster. A couple housekeeping items just to start. Pretend like this is a movie theater, and please put your phone on silent. We are being recorded from right there as the meeting is being live streamed, and all your comments are as such. Just so you are aware, anybody making public comment either in the first public comment section, the open public comment section at the end of the meeting, or attached to any individual item on the agenda, please begin with your name and the block of your residence and keep your comments to 3 minutes. With that, if you are so willing, please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. Oh. Mr. Harris, if you would please call the roll of members.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Arroyo.
Here.
Ms. Baque. Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Mr. Garcia Molina. Mr. Soto. And President Smith-Waddell.
Here, Councilors Baque, Soto, and Garcia Molina are excused this evening. We go then to the approval of the minutes for the meeting of November 9th, 2021.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council comments on the minutes. Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Aye. Just a second. One moment, all. Councilor Diaz, I believe you have a motion.
Yes, I do, President. I hereby make a motion to correct approval minutes of the July 9th, 2019 City Council meeting. The meetings now should state, Ms. Diaz made a motion to approve the Historic Architectural Review Board recommendations to grant a certification of appropriateness to apply, and then Mr. Soto seconded the motion. The minutes should say, Ms. Diaz made a motion to approve the Historical Architectural Review Board recommended and denied a certification of appropriateness to the application. Mr. Soto seconded the motion. This will be corrected for historical records.
Second?
Thank
Okay.
you.
We have a motion and a second. Council comments on the revision of the minutes. Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
And President Smith Waddell.
Aye. It is done.
Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, that brings us to proclamations, honors, awards, and resolutions of recognition. Mr. Harris.
We have none tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you. That brings us to our first public comment period, reserved for those residents who have contacted the city clerk before the meeting. Do we have any, Mr. Harris?
Yes, we do, Mr. President. First is Gary Ziffer.
Mr. Ziffer? Is Mr. Ziffer present this evening? Okay. All right, well then we will move to our second public comment and address Mr. Ziffer if and when he arrives.
The second would be Darlene Bird.
Ms. Bird?
Darlene Bird, 200 block of South Ann Street. I'm here representing Darlene Bird, speaking to you. I'm not representing South Ann. I'm not representing Nan. I'm not representing the state of Black Lancaster. I'm representing myself as a taxpayer and a citizen. I'm here to address council because I have concerns about the ARPA money and the funding. Council approved to spend $5 million in ARPA money on affordable housing. And we presented with council a project on the hub project back in, I think, July. We started in June. We started talking to council members. And we were told we would have to wait until there is a process that is developed on how this money is going to be given out. And in October the 12th, we know there was a presentation made to council about setting aside $5 million for affordable housing. And we know that at that following council meeting, that it was awarded $997,000 to buy a parking lot to do affordable housing. At that time, it was also noted that South Ann had a project for housing. And we were asking for $85,000 to do affordable housing. And it was my understanding that was going to go forward. We're now questioning the transparency of council because I've been told by some council members that they just now got the document from the Treasury Department saying what all the guidelines are. But council already approved $5 million for affordable housing. Now, if the process wasn't set up and okay to go, I question them, why did it go and we already agreed to put almost $1 million on the parking lot? If there were no regulations set at that time or requirements to be met for HDC to buy a parking lot. We presented our housing project to each council member. We are really looking, I contacted you individually, asking what is the process? How we understand there got to be a resolution brought before council. We ask, when are the meetings? What is the process? How do we get to the next step? Contacted the mayor's office several times, frustrated, disappointed, and was told, well, we have to wait. And I'm here asking council, why is that? There is money set aside for affordable housing that has been approved by council. And the process for that money must already be set because we already gave away $997,000. So I'm here, everybody on council said that affordable housing is one of their major concerns. But why is that and when is that? Only when it deals in coming from the city's recommendation? Or when is that is your concern that we want to see affordable housing and we want to see it now? Not 7 years from now. We're talking because we need affordable housing now. And just to keep prolonging that, you know, I'm here asking council what's going on. I reached out to all of you individually. And I'm asking now, what's the next step? How do we make this happen? I don't know if my 3 minutes were up, but.
Thank you, Ms. Bird. I'm sorry. My apologies. Had a brain fart there for a moment. I think the next step for you, for South End Concerned Neighbors and all other parties interested in submitting ARPA requests, really is to have that process or have the application shepherded through the process as I discussed with you. We should have a way of taking those and making clear to all parties what the requirements that the federal government has are, and those should be presented with you forthwith. I don't think any nonprofit should be set up to fail is such that
Right.
they don't have the necessary regulations. So we'll make sure that you have all the information that you need, and I know that you've been in touch with the administration, and then the proposed resolutions would go, it's still my understanding, through Councilor Arroyo's committee based on an RFP process, which should be documented shortly. And I'll personally apologize for any confusion or prolonging that you've experienced. I cannot guarantee the votes of other council members, but I do think it is important that we move forward here. More information to come, and you have my contact information, and you have Councilor Arroyo.
So when does your committee meet?
So the Economic Development Committee meets on the first Monday of every month with the other committees. And just for a little bit of clarification, so the $5 million allocation is just that. It's an allocation based on what the intentions are for those dollars. But the actual process is being developed right now through the Community Planning Economic Development Committee. So that process still has to be formulated to make sure that there is a transparent process, that there is an opportunity for community organizations to present those proposals. But we also want to make sure that the guidelines that are issued through this money, because there's a lot of strict guidelines that
Understand.
the city has to make sure that we're meeting those requirements, are put in place to make sure that these organizations aren't set up to fail and that we can comply with those organizations, with those regulations. So
And so was the money released to HDC to purchase the parking lot or not?
I think that's actually one forgive me, Councilor Roy.
So closing is set in December. And Ms. Byrd, I want to reiterate what I emailed you earlier today, which is that I share your disappointment and frustration that this is slowing the process down. On November the 8th, as I indicated in my emails to you, we had a briefing with a law firm that specializes in the U.S. Treasury regulations. We are going to need to do more to ensure compliance with those regulations. And I also know that I myself am disappointed and frustrated as well that we need to slow the process down. You're raising questions about decisions that the council has made as it relates to the purchase of Marietta Avenue site
Parking
for
lot.
affordable housing, that 1 acre property. And we are going to need to go back with HDC and make sure that we can meet all of the regulatory and legal guidance that is required. They are not getting a pass on all of the regulatory requirements that are necessary. What we don't want to do is make additional commitments until we are all clear about what those obligations are, so that there is no confusion moving forward. And I will own that I share your concerns about the pace in which this is moving. I also will own the fact that I have been very pushing to get these investments made, and was hoping that this process would be less encumbered than it is now. And I will just say, this is the first time that we are using these ARPA funds, and we are learning right alongside of you.
So can we get a copy of the regulations?
They're online. There's 275 pages. I can think Patrick or one of us will get you the link. We're in the process of reviewing those regulations as it applies to the housing strategy. And there's a lot of other work that has to happen, because each pot of funds that we spend has to have performance targets and metrics and reporting and a whole host of other things. So it's more than I want it to be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Byrd. And Mr. Hopkins, if you would just be so kind when you forward those to Ms. Byrd, just to forward them to members of council as well. I know how much we love afternoon reading. Thank you, Ms. Byrd. Thank you, Mayor and Councilor Arroyo. Mr. Harris, do we have any other public comments in this section?
We do not, Mr. President.
Okay. We will then move to reports requested by council. What have we got tonight, Mr. Harris?
We have the mayor's budget address.
Mayor Sarachi.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President and councilors. Tonight, I present for your review and consideration the proposed budget for 2022. Here is the short version. There will be no property tax increases this year, thanks to President Biden's American Rescue Plan Act, otherwise known as ARPA. The longer version, due to the revenue replacement provision within ARPA to assist state and local governments with economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, we are eligible for $3.2 million of ARPA revenue replacement funds in 2021. This, along with a one-time savings of $1.7 million from the bond refinancing that was completed in September, means that we have eliminated the $4.9 million use of reserves that we projected for the 2021 budget. Instead, we are projecting that we will end 2021 with a surplus of $1.7 million, realized by approximately $315,000 in benefits-related savings, $770,000 in operational savings, and some better-than-projected revenues. This will take the general fund reserve balance from $15 million to $16.7 million, representing 3 months of operating reserves. This is good news. Turning to 2022 proposed budget, which includes the general fund and all 4 enterprise funds, water, wastewater, stormwater, solid waste, and recycling, there is a proposed increase of 2% over 2021 adopted budgets. There are no proposed changes to water, wastewater, or stormwater fees at this time. We are estimating increases in the water fund revenues from outside city customers pending Pennsylvania Utility Commissioner approval, and from inside city customers when the PUC rate case has been finalized in order to equalize rates. Subsequently, we anticipate bringing an inside city customer water rate increase later in 2022 for council consideration. Solid waste and recycling fees will increase by $4 per quarter, which are directly related to increased hauling, tipping, and processing fees. Specific to the general fund, there is a 4% increase in expenditures proposed, or $2.5 million. This increase is primarily related to increases in healthcare costs, pension obligations, operating cost increase, and new budgeted positions, especially as it relates to IT. There is an anticipated 2% increase in tax revenues. But for ARPA, we'd be coming to you tonight with a proposal to increase property taxes to fill that gap between 4% increase in expenses and 2% increase in revenues. Instead, we are proposing a budget that utilizes $4.5 million of ARPA in 2022 and $2.2 million in general fund revenues. This gap year to year between revenues and expenditures, 2% in revenues, 4% in expenditures, is the structural deficit that I've now been talking about for years. Why is it structural? 3 of the 4 revenue streams that the city relies on are set by state law. The only one that the city council can raise is property taxes. 30% of the city's real estate value is tax exempt. The assessed value of all properties in the city does not grow at the rate of expenses. Last year, the assessed value on all properties in the city went up by just 0.2%. Let me say that again. Last year, the assessed value of all properties in the city went up by just 0.2%. And finally, we are required by state law to provide professional public safety services, i.e., we pay our police and firefighters and do not rely on state police or volunteers. For these reasons and others, we have a fundamental imbalance between our expenses and revenues. Costs will continue to rise, even as we strive to hold costs at or under 4% annually. Unfortunately, our revenues do not keep pace. For the last decade or more, the city has relied on the use of reserves to pass a balanced budget. Most years, through some combination of careful spending, one-time wins, for example, real estate tax sale windfalls, bond refinancing savings, and grants, along with tax increases, we have managed to maintain the level of services that our residents rely on every day. So while ARPA is buying us time, we must look ahead and plan for the day we won't have ARPA to backfill our budget. A quick look at our 5-year projections show that we are heading towards deficit spending in 3 years, erasing our entire general fund reserve. City residents should note that this is the longest reprieve in raising taxes since at least 2008. Taxes have on average increased every other year during the decade of 2008 to 2018. I'm grateful that ARPA is allowing our community to collectively get back up on its feet. And yet I also know that we need real, permanent solutions to ensure the long-term success of the city. Those permanent solutions will only come when elected officials in Harrisburg decide it is time to take up this issue in earnest. My budget address for 2022, Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilors. Sorry. Councilors, knowing that this is the budget address and we have just received the proposed budget documentation for 2022, do you have any immediate questions or comments for the mayor, with again the knowledge that we will have an all-day knockdown drag-out session on December the 11th to hear from the various departments? Anything right now, councilors?
Just a quick comment that thankful that there are no foreseen property tax increases for now. So definitely grateful for that.
I would like to know, Mr. Harris or Mr. Hopkins, in your free time, when the last time that it was that the city of Lancaster went for God, sorry, y'all. Went 4 years without a property tax increase. That might be compelling to see visually, and it's important to know. It's important to note, rather, how much the administration and this council have risen to the challenge on that matter. It is increasingly difficult to provide the same or better level of service for what appears to be the same amount of money. So thank you, and I look forward to a robust discussion on the budget on December 11th and going forward. Anything immediate from the public, again, with the knowledge that we'll be able to break this down in detail for you on December the 11th at 10 a.m.?
Yes.
December the 11th, 10 a.m., right here. Right here, right? We're not.
Yes.
Great.
I'd also just add that at council meeting, council committee meeting, finance committee meeting on December the 6th, Mr. Hopkins will be providing an overview, and then on December 11th will be each of the department directors' detailed dive into each aspect of the budget for that knockout, drag out session.
It's fun if you consider that kind of thing fun. Thank you again, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yep. We will go to interim reports of committees of council. Do we have any, Mr. Harris?
We do not, Mr. President.
Thank you. That takes us to our legislative agenda, ordinances for final passage. Administration Bill number 21, 2021. Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. An ordinance of the Council of the City of Lancaster, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, amending sections 262-21, 285-86, 285-91, and 285-93 of the Code of the City of Lancaster, and rescinding and repealing sections 285-90 and 94 of the Code of the City of Lancaster, to redefine terms and to clarify and provide that street cleaning and street sweeping regulations apply to snow clearing from such places, and that alternate side of street parking during street cleaning will not be authorized when street cleaning as newly defined is implemented, providing for the severability of the ordinance, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, and providing that the ordinance shall take effect in accordance with Pennsylvania law.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Director Campbell?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to take on this particular ordinance. It was very fruitful for us to take the amount of time that we did to not ask for the second reading within 2 weeks of the first reading. It meant, it gave us the opportunity to reach out to several community groups and other organizations and have a better understanding of the magnitude of the parking challenge. It's a huge challenge, and it's not something which is specific to this particular ordinance. Our hope was and still is that all aspects of this ordinance can go forward with a minor adjustment. We are proposing an amendment to the timing. You'll find that there's a clause called Section 1, Clause C, where it says commencing at the hour declared by the mayor that snow emergency regulations are no longer in effect, all parking restrictions regarding street cleaning referenced would begin. That was with our anticipation that we could mobilize our forces and be able to have alternates for people to have places to park in a timely manner so that we could start that immediately. It is clear that we will not be able to have that kind of parking in the way that we had hoped. So we proposed that that particular clause be amended to say commencing 48 hours after the declaration, which gives, I believe, enough time for many people to find alternate parking. The huge benefit as far as we're concerned is the ability to find the way of expeditiously cleaning the streets, not only of snow, but of anything in a weather emergency. All of the other provisions of the ordinance that we, as proposed, we would keep, and that includes, just for emphasis, that the opportunity to move your car into a parking space after the street sweeper has gone by would no longer be limited to only the narrow streets. It would be citywide. The nature and magnitude of the parking problem is such that every opportunity, every minute we can provide parking for people, we think is a huge benefit. It also means that we will not be using, in most cases, we will not be using the full window of that street cleaning period unless we put up temporary signage to that effect in the areas affected. So our goal is to be as friendly as possible with the population, but we do recognize that the challenges related to the longer term parking will persist. We are expecting that we'll be working with the city and the various communities for the better part of the next year or more to try to address the nature of parking, RPP, and a variety of other kinds of things. But I do believe that with that one minor change, we'll be able to be much more effective and more efficient. It will still have some inconvenience to a number of people, but we'll be working with the people in each neighborhood over the course of this next year to address that.
Thank you, Director Campbell. So it is my understanding, and let me make sure I have this, that you are requesting that the bill on the floor be amended such that the part of Section 1, Clause C that says commencing immediately following or commencing 0 hours after a snow event be amended to say commencing 48 hours following.
That is correct.
I will entertain such a motion.
Second.
So a motion to amend section,
Well, hold on, I think, so I did not
okay,
move.
go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
okay.
Yep.
All right, so I'll motion to amend section C, part C of section 1, where it says commencing at the hour declared to commencing 48 hours after
After the hour declared, yeah.
the hour declared.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Council comments on the amendment.
I have a question. So how about if we're shut down more than 48 hours because we had this ginormous storm that you can't even leave your house?
So we always have, it's a very good question. We always have the ability to either extend the nature of the snow emergency, to be able to not lift that emergency until we believe we're in a position to be able to manage things, or to be able to either street by street or circumstance by circumstance to make exceptions.
And then at that point, it would be to the general knowledge, whether it's a newspaper or TV station, radio station, that they will know that.
That's correct. We would be making public notifications in a variety of different media and social media, the press. Hopefully, we'd be doing public service announcements, any of those kinds of things. And I think in that kind of a circumstance, it would be such an extreme circumstance that most people would be awaiting just such a thing. You're probably looking at 20, lots and lots of snow, and people are saying, there's no way on earth anyone's going to be able to clear these streets 48 hours after. But keep in mind, the lifting of the snow emergency is the declaration by the mayor when we all have agreed that we're now at a position where we can now manage that. So it's highly unlikely that the snow ends and then it's automatically a 48-hour, automatically lifting. It's when we all agree that it's now okay to lift the snow emergency because our forces are able to clear the streets, there are places where people can park, et cetera.
Thank you.
From the public?
South End neighborhood was one of the groups that got to meet with Steve after the reading. We had about 19 people show up and about, I think it was 15 different blocks represented from our neighborhood. And we really don't have no snow routes in what we geographically call our neighborhood. So a great portion of this ordinance does not affect us. We don't have one side of parking within our neighborhood. We did talk about some concerns about the street sweeper going in the winter, and our past experience was it would go while there was still ice on the street. And we want to make sure that because people don't move their car because there's ice. So as long as the ordinance is addressing that there will be some snow removal before just sending the street cleaner on the non-state route roads, then, the ordinance was okay. We talked, we met. Our group is going to meet again on December the 1st. We're still trying to come up with solutions for the permanent parking, and we're still working for that. And so council will hear from that group again.
Thank you, Ms. Bird.
And if I may, just for clarification, it was the case that, yes, the nature of allowing snow clearance to be part of the street cleaning means that the first swipe or the first several swipes may actually be the snow plows.
Right.
It's not the case that we would be doing sweeping while there's still too much snow to move around. The intention first is to clear the streets of the snow, and then once it is clear, to be able to continue to to maintain the streets clear of other debris.
Anybody else?
If I may, Council President, I just want to thank Director Campbell for elevating these changes and these concerns. This is really an effort to be much more responsive to the public and to provide a way to remove snow from parking lanes to allow for more cars to be able to park. And honestly, this was not something that was on my radar in terms of advancing legislatively. And I just want to say that this is really kudos to Director Campbell for working through these changes with his team. And as we move into this next snow season, we're going to do our very best to communicate with the public about all of the changes that we're making. And really the end story of this is that the intention here is to meet the needs of residents by plowing curb to curb, not just on snow emergency routes.
Thank you. I want to give a specific, before we vote, I do want to specifically thank South End Concerned Neighbors for holding that community meeting. And also, I want to specifically just, not embarrass, actually, just want to give you a little praise, Director Campbell, I saw that. A little praise, because I can think of 2 instances in the past couple of months where you've shown a remarkable flexibility and receptiveness to public feedback. And that is not something that the city of Lancaster has always historically been known for. And so it not just, does the job better, but also helps us build public goodwill for the big asks that we'll need to make in the future. So it's much appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I take very seriously not only our model, which is that we're dedicated to your quality of life, but we want to make sure that the public is solidly, squarely in the middle of public works.
Hear, hear. Hearing no other comments, Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President, I vote on the motion to amend. Mr. Arroyo,
Aye.
Ms. Gregg,
Aye.
Ms. Diaz,
Aye.
and President Smith-Waddell.
Aye. Okay, council comments on the amended motion.
If I may, Council President? I was second everyone's comments and praise for Director Campbell's leadership during these, last couple instances where not only have you engaged with the community, but also shown a lot of flexibility when it came to these ordinances to make them that better. So really appreciate that. I do have one question since we're on the topic of budgets this year, but when we make these types of changes to ordinances that allow for streamlining of operations, do you anticipate a more a financial impact or a positive financial impact over the long term by making these types of changes to ordinances?
To the extent that we can more, not only aggressively, but more consistently serve in keeping the streets clean and et cetera, yes. Our team took this last winter very seriously, did some additional training, learned some different techniques. We have more data to work with on what kind of ice do we use, what kinds of blades on, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of it was already stock and trade, but we are more measured in making those kinds of decisions. It's not increasing the cost or the numbers of people. The snow routes remain basically the same. It just hopefully will allow those snow routes to be cleared a little bit faster, a little bit more cleanly, and a little bit more predictably, so that people can see the difference and experience it differently. And I think another piece is by being able to have people move into the parking spaces directly after the snowplow and ultimately the street sweepers go by can be a huge benefit. We're working with the parking authority to make sure that there's not some other misunderstanding about someone having been in the wrong place at the wrong time and the street sweeper goes by and they still get a ticket. But we believe that it's not going to be a cost add. We believe that it'll be an efficiency and will help public relations as well as help our ability to keep the streets cleaner on an ongoing basis.
Great. And regardless of the financial impact, I think it does lend itself to improving the living experience for our residents and, as you said, the overall quality of life. So thank you.
Yes.
Other council comments? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
On the amended bill. Mr. Arroyo,
Aye.
Ms. Gregg,
Aye.
Ms. Diaz,
Aye.
and President Smith-Waddell.
Aye. Thank you. That brings us to Administration Bill number 23, 2021. Mr. Harris.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lancaster, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the proper officials of the City of Lancaster to enter into a memorandum of understanding for the purpose of providing for intergovernmental cooperation with respect to the payment of costs, contribution of services, and pursuing funding necessary for the preliminary design and engineering of phase the Little Conestoga Creek preliminary design and, the Little Conestoga Creek Blue-Green Card Project, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, providing for the severability of the ordinance, and providing that the ordinance shall take effect in accordance with Pennsylvania law.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. This is something that we've discussed a couple of times now, but if either of you two gentlemen have additional comments to make before we...
I would, thank you again. I'd very much like to give Mr. Schultz the opportunity to speak or say a few words if he would like to. I do think that this is a very valuable and modest investment in a huge benefit when I look at what's required to meet the requirements of the consent decree. To be able to have access to these stormwater credits is a big deal as far as I'm concerned. But the project itself has significantly greater benefits than just the stormwater credits to the city of Lancaster. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Schultz.
Well, the first thing I want to say is I really appreciate City Council taking up this ordinance. And second of all, since we're passing out kudos to Steve Campbell, I'll pass out more kudos to Steve Campbell. So the situation is that we really appreciate the fact that we have 4 municipal governments willing to cooperate on this project, to the tune of not just saying it and actually, signing an ordinance, but actually putting money on the table. So each of the communities is going to put $75,000 on the table for us to be able to proceed with this project. For that, you're going to get 25,000 MS4 credits that you can use anytime in the future. We hope then to bring you all together, all 4 of the communities together, to do a subsequent memorandum of understanding, because the project could, in fact, throw off 1 million credits. And so what we'd like to do then is meet with you all to talk about how we would distribute 1 million credits. That would go a long way toward meeting your MS4 requirements. So I just want to say to you, we at the Steinman Foundation view this as a transformational project. It's going to be the largest stream restoration project of its kind, biggest, largest, very expensive, $14 million that we hope to get state and federal funds to do that. And we've already rounded up about 10% of those dollars to date. So again, I want to commend City Council for considering this and acting accordingly.
Thank you, sir. Council comments? From the public? Hearing none. Mr. Harris?
Mr. Roya,
Aye.
Ms. Craig,
Aye.
Ms. Diaz,
Aye.
and President Smith-Waddell.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Give me just a second, all. Okay, that brings us to ordinances for first reading. Administration Bill number 24, 2021.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Lancaster, County of Lancaster, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, appropriating the specific sums estimated to be required for the specific purposes of the city government hereinafter set forth during the year 2022, allowing for a severance provision, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, and providing for an effective date. The title, Mr. President.
Thank you. So this is the budget ordinance, which obviously we won't be taking up immediately, and that additional data will be filled into data that we've just received that will be made public and discussed at the December 11th hearing. My finance chair is excused this evening, but Mr. Hopkins, do you have any pertinent comments or mayor that would educate the public? Okay. So this is just us getting geared up to pass a budget. Expect several hours and hundreds of pages of information to follow before this ordinance is passed. Council comments? Well, yes. Any from the public?
I'm just thinking that the ordinance is a little bit premature since we don't even get the facts of the budget till the 11th or the 9th, and we're already doing the first reading and approving it. And it reminds me of what we just went through with that ARPA, where we approved something and we found out there was a whole lot more to it than what we thought. I mean, with council not knowing anything, we're already approving the reading of the first so that means it's going to come back and it's only going to have one reading to get approved because you did this. Let me ask that question.
It's going to have a discussion at the December 6th Finance Committee meeting.
Right,
There will
and-
then be another 5-hour hearing on December 11th, and both of those will take place before it is even possible that council could vote to approve this. Then there will be another meeting of council. If in fact the budget is not successful in passing, then we may find ourselves in one of those situations where we're having an emergency meeting on New Year's Eve. But that's
Hopefully not.
not our preference. So
Right.
this is just us putting this item on the agenda so that after the committee meeting and after the budget departmental presentations, it will be ready on the agenda for public discussion and then passage. But there's actually 3 meetings and about 3 weeks of publicly released budget documents before anything comes to a vote.
And I'll just add that the budget will be available on the website, the city's website tomorrow.
And I understand that. Like I said, it's just approving it. You're taking a step that you normally come and discuss it with the public first during the first reading, and then you get that opportunity again at the second reading. Now we're already passing it at the first reading without having no information. So I do understand we're going to have meetings after this, but you're taking that one step of being presented before council away because we have no information.
And I'll just add that since the dawn of time, this has been the schedule of when we've introduced the budget. It's always been the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. It's always the first time that the budget is made public. And this is the requirement of state law that we pass a budget before we start
I
a new fiscal
understand
year.
all of that.
Yep.
And times are changing.
Thank you, Ms. Byrd.
And I think just for clarification, council is not taking action tonight on this budget.
We are not. Mr. Dastra.
Tony Dastra, 700 block of New Holland Avenue. So this is taking advantage of this moment right now. Obviously, there's not much to discuss specifically. What I wanted to request is actually assistance in connecting the public to information. So far this meeting, we've referenced, for example, our ARPA funds and the regulations around those. Getting Ms. Byrd the link to that is a good idea, but I also think that it's important for the public to know where to find these documents. In personal conversations not even related to the budget, I've had people tell me, for example, I have read that, you need to read this information, but I haven't read it, or I don't even know where to find it. It's embarrassing how much discourse in our society happens because people don't know where to find that, I think you said 207-page document. Not that I'm eager to read it, but I frankly don't really know where to find that information myself. And I think when we consider the interwebs, if you will, that's really where I think the website can assist residents, is assisting us in finding those federal resources and those state resources. So that's really what I wanted to say using this time, because I will take up some of your time later. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I'm tempted to agree, and
Sorry. can I take like
Yeah,
30
you have
seconds
time.
back? The reason I pointed that out is because I was also reading the third class city code optional charter. I'm actually also confused on like how these laws exactly pertain to us. Because when I'm reading the optional charter, which I'm pretty sure is the law of the city, section 302, subsection 2.2 or 2.3, it basically refers to like, give me one moment. When I read something like one of the city's powers is to construct, acquire, operate, or maintain any and all public improvements, projects, or enterprises for any public purpose subject to referendum requirements otherwise imposed by law. And then I also read later at section 4, section 3, sue and be sued, have a corporate seal to construct and be, or contract with, to buy, sell, lease, hold, and dispose of real personal property, to appropriate and expend monies. A lot of that to me as a resident sounds like we are able to do more if we just look at the law a little differently. And I think that maybe we can find ways for our city to, the point isn't to make a business out of this, but clearly there's people building enterprises on our livelihoods right now and extracting from our communities. And so I think with this money that's coming in, it's an opportunity for us to get a jump on it before somebody gets the jump on us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, for what it's worth, home.treasury.gov would be where you would start looking for the interim final rule and the and guidance on filing and reporting. And I'm tempted to agree for the folks, though I think it might be just you, that, it wouldn't hurt us to put it up on the website. Anyway, thank you. Ms. Hoover.
Yeah, just quickly, Susie Hoover, 200 block of East King. On December the 6th, when Patrick gives his presentation, where will that be and what time?
That is our regularly scheduled committee meeting, so it will be here at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Similarly, the December 11th meeting will be here at 10 a.m. Any other comments from the public? Okay, and we're off to the races. We will then, that brings us to Administration Bill number 25, 2021. Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. An ordinance amending the Code of the City of Lancaster, Chapter 270, Taxation, Article 4, Property and Residence Tax, Section 270.26, Levy and Rate, by fixing the tax rate at 11.7 mils on property in the City of Lancaster for general revenue purposes, allowing for a severance provision, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, and providing for an effective date. The title, Mr. President.
Thank you. Again, as I said, my finance chair, our finance chair is excused, but the short version herein is that we're not raising your taxes. In a particularly challenging year for municipal revenues, it is equally recognized that it's been a particularly challenging year for our residents, and so the proposal is that the property tax millage rate remain exactly where it is. Mayor, Mr. Hopkins, any? Okay. All right. Council. From the public? Okay then, and we will get into that one once we're through with the budget. So it will be, it happens every year, but it'll be quite a process. Thank you. That brings us to our second public comment period, open for objects not addressed on the agenda. The rules are the same. The duration of the comments is 3 minutes. Please begin with your name and the block of your residence. Mr. Dastra.
Tony Dastra, 700 block of New Holland Avenue. So part of why I rambled that off about the third-class city code and me not being sure exactly where the optional charter falls over the regular third-class city code, and part of why I want to see the city potentially help us figure that out as a public in continuity, because I'm learning every day. In any case, I'm coming up to talk about the village property, actually, because I don't know whether or not the city is allowed to hold a liquor license. And I understand that's part of the transaction of sale there, but as a resident, frankly, I would be okay with the city owning a liquor license. It seems to make sense to me. In any case, the property aside, I think that we as a community really need to be looking there right now. We discussed parking as an issue tonight. That's a piece of property in the central business district zoning that is right beside Red Rose Transit Authority. And to me, it makes the most sense to develop housing right beside the transit center, because it eliminates hopefully the need for a car, depending on what your profession is and where you're going. But that being the hub of this hub and spoke model that we currently have for our transit authority, and it's likely that that's going to be where the transit for Lancaster City connects to the train for a long time to come. Right now, it seems a little pricey, $2 million. I'm going to say that outright, but I think that we as a public should be interested in that property and potentially what we can do overall with our monies in that location in regards to affordable housing, because as we continue to build, we can resolve our parking woes intermittently as we experience weather patterns or whatnot, but we really need to get a grip on how many chunks of metal are sitting on the street, because it's really bogging up things for a lot of us, and it's only going to get worse. Thank you guys for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Dastra. Actually, Mr. Harris, would you be so kind as to bother Barry about whether a third-class city can hold an R liquor license?
Certainly.
Thank you. Ms. Byrd?
Darlene, 200 block of South Ann Street. I just wanted to make a comment about Steve Campbell, because Cindy McCormick and under Steve Campbell's direction and I have been meeting a long time. For almost 2 years, we've been going before the Traffic Commission about a stop sign on South Ann and Green Street. While we didn't get our stop sign, we worked together with an agreement and we got the piano keys. We now have the Garden Court parking lot, one way in, one way out, that really helps make that a very safe intersection. So we're watching it to see, we're both on agreement. This is something that we tried, you know, to avoid having to putting a stop sign there. But when we met, the neighbors were totally against it. We just wanted the stop sign. But as we kept working with them and talking with them, we came to an agreement, and it's done. And we've been noticing that people are taking more interest at that crosswalk and at that intersection when they're driving or walking, because those piano keys and the one-way in and out makes a big difference. And the other area I really wanted to just touch on, and I know Becca, I've been contacting her and emailing her a lot about the ordinance. I won't be at the next landlord meeting, but I have a serious concern about the blood levels on children and what's going to happen once they are actually tested, maybe at LGH, and LGH notifies Lancaster City that a child has elevated blood levels. What actually happens? And I think that's all going to get explained at the landlord meeting, if I'm correct. I will not be able to be at that meeting, but I'm asking council to pay close attention to what happens, because if the child is removed from the home immediately, which is what I think is going to happen, who takes that child and what happens? And is the city really want to break up families over health issues like high levels of lead in the blood? And like I said, I didn't hear it all, but I'm challenging council to pay attention, because I don't think that is a solution to take the child out of the house. immediately and condemn the house because of the high levels of blood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Byrd. Other public comments? Hearing none, we go then to the report of the mayor. Mayor Sarachi?
Nothing further to add.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I have no report. Council comments?
I do have President Wydell. The first thing I'd like to say is I did speak with Barry, the solicitor, regarding our laws, which is the Roberts Rule. I have noticed some outbursts that has not been addressed by President Wydell when I am speaking at the committee meetings. The outburst has happened more than 3 times with Councilor Beke. Now, I have seen where Robert's Rule states that you are supposed to call order. If the president is not going to call order, I will take the route in calling order. Now, I have seen even the mayor, when you have called her out. I don't understand why, and I don't know if this is some political game or some power-hungry person, but it needs to stop. When I am running my committee meeting, I would run it the way I wish. If I ask anyone regarding a reappointment, a question, I have the right to do so. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. Other council comments?
If I may, Council President. Just first of all, I just want to thank Ms. Byrd for your persistence regarding the ARPA funds. I think because of that level of persistence, it keeps us on our toes to make sure that we are creating a transparent and inclusive process with these funds. But I also want to thank our city officials for making sure that we are creating a RFP process that is intentional, making sure that we are meeting these guidelines. I think it's important to remember that this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity that we have here, and we have to make sure that we're not only acting with a sense of urgency, but also we're acting with a sense of responsibility to be good stewards of these dollars. So as we move forward, there are going to be opportunities for regular updates on this process, and we look forward to working with all organizations in the community to make sure that we are rolling out these dollars for affordable housing, making sure we have a good impact in our community. So just want to say thank you to all.
Thank you, Councilor Royal. Any other council comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.